I've stumbled upon a conspiracy theory within the Beastars universe that no one else has ever talked about, and by the end of this video I can prove that Bill not only conspired with a nefarious black market organization to overthrow Louis and become the next Beastar, but also orchestrated Tems' demise. And it can all be proven by the fact that Bill has a costume for the second performance of Adler. Because in the time frame the series has given us, for Bill to have a costume in time for the second performance is completely impossible. So come with me as we put on this small thread and slowly unravel this massive conspiracy within the Beastars world. By the fact that Bill has a costume for the second performance, this means the only logical answer within the Beastars world is Bill conspired to overthrow Louis and take his place in Adler as the main character for his own nefarious reasons. What are those reasons? We'll get into that later. This also means that Bill was in cahoots with Zoe and even orchestrated Tems' demise as just a stepping stone to get to his goal. Whether Zoe was willingly going along with his plan or was doing it under threat of death is unknown, but either way, he has blood on his hand. How many people are involved? How deep does this conspiracy go? And what could justify killing his classmate? And what is Bill's end goal? Does Bill seek to become the next Beastar to enact his plan? Or does Bill need to become the next Beastar as a stepping stone to enact his nefarious plan? Because all the evidence proves that Bill must have had a costume built before Louis even got injured, which means Bill knew that Louis was going to get injured, and the only way he could have known that is if he himself had orchestrated it. Okay, yeah, that all sounds crazy, and I acknowledge that. But within the world of Beastars, if you look at the evidence, this is the only logical answer that makes sense with all the evidence we have. So, let's talk about this scene, shall we, and explain how Bill is very likely the mastermind who orchestrated Tems' demise. Where to even start with this shot? First, let's contrast it to the previous night. When Louis stood as Adler, the room was fully lit. It was bright, inviting, and vibrant. Louis stood powerfully in front of the mirror, staring himself down. Whereas in Bill's case, he sits alone in a dark room. The only source of light is a single mirror that only somewhat illuminates the room. While Louis is confident and without hesitation, staring himself down in the mirror, Bill is looking downwards, avoiding eye contact and taking a moment to meditate, reflect, and try and calm his nerves before the show. The poster of Adler looming in the background, the idea of death slowly encroaching on him and reminding him of what he has done. Again, the series uses mirrors. While it obviously isn't a reflection talking, it is the version we see talking, as opposed to the real version of Bill. Personally, I think this was just a cool cinematic choice as opposed to a symbolic choice. It looks cool to see Bill talking to a yet unseen presence in the room. He's so cool, he's not even opening his eyes, he's just looking down. I know you're there. You can stop hiding. With Bill literally being sat within the spotlight, as the lead role, he is the main focus of the shot, so the light shines around him. I said shrined. Praise the Bill! Bow before shrine god. Much like the previous night, scattered around the countertops is all the makeup pots and tubs, as well as the schedule behind Bill, but the light shines on the star. But unlike the previous night, the light is only shining on the star of the show. And speaking of the star of the show, let's talk about how Bill orchestrated Tems' death for his own nefarious reasons. Let's get into it. The Adler poster states the performance takes place from 2 PM to 2:30 PM. The timeline of events of Bill began at 8 PM the night of the first performance, when Louis announced Bill as his understudy, and ends at the beginning of the second performance the next day. This means the max time between Bill being chosen as the understudy and the second performance is 18 hours, which is accounting for the idea that they would work through the night, which we know they weren't as we see Els and Legoshi go home that night. Provided they left between 10 PM and midnight and woke up early enough that they could start alterations at 8 AM, that would mean the time frame for creating Bill's costume would be the 2 to 4 hours the night before of the first performance and the 6 hours before the second performance the next day, 8 if they woke up at 6 AM. This means the very max amount of time they could have to work on the costume would be 12 hours. But hell, let's just be really generous and say, yes, they worked through the night and it was 18 hours and the costume designers worked non-stop. They have 18 hours, fantastic. Point A, point B. Between point A and point B, they had 18 hours. Okay, could the costume be made in that time? According to my costume designer contact, designing a costume like that with alterations like that, working as soon as they woke up to when they go to sleep with 0 breaks, would take 3 full days of work. Although realistically, working from 9 to 5 would take at least a week. So, even if they had 0 breaks, even if they worked as best they could, even if they worked the professional standard level, even if they worked beyond the best, it would still be impossible for Bill to have a costume between being chosen as the unstudy and the second performance. Zoe's alterations had a window of 3 days, which, while tight, due to his and Tems' similar body types, may have been possible, although still very unlikely due to him still having classes. Same with Legoshi's costume. While it would have been impossible to modify it to fit Legoshi between the first and second performance, it could have been that he's just wearing the outfit made for Bill, made to fit Legoshi, via safety pins. In reality, it probably is just Bill's costume that Legoshi is wearing, however, thanks to safety pins and, tucking and all that. Tucking's something completely different. Well, who knows, maybe. But point being, he might be wearing Bill's costume that's just slightly too large for him. This means the only way Bill could have a costume ready for the second performance is, by the time of the second performance, Bill already had a costume made to fit him for Adler. This means, even if the costume team were working non-stop to create Bill's costume, they would have had to start working on it 2 days before Louis announced Bill as his replacement. Which means Bill had knowledge of needing a costume before anyone else, and even before Louis injured himself. Meaning Bill knew that Louis was going to get injured. However, how could he have known? The only reason Louis got injured is he was trying to protect Zoe from falling off the stage. And the only reason Zoe and Louis were on the stage is Zoe needed to rehearse Ode's lines, which were originally Tem. If Tem had never have died, they would have never needed to find a replacement for him. This means Bill, or whoever they're working for, enlisted the help of Zoe to take a fall on the stage, to injure Louis and prevent him from being able to do the performance, allowing Bill to take the place of Adler in the performance, though they were unprepared for Louis' stubbornness and resolve. And even though Louis were able to do the first performance, he collapsed afterwards, so Bill did eventually take on the second performance. However, they may have wanted him to do the original first performance, however, because Louis' stubbornness, he didn't. But once again, the only reason Zoe was enlisted to be Ode was because they needed a replacement for Tem. And the only reason they needed a replacement for Tem was because Tem was dead. This means Bill needed to get Tem out of the picture to make sure Zoe could take his place, fake a fall, injure Louis, and allow Bill to take his place as Adler, which he was able to do because he already had a costume ready, which if it were made before the second performance, or even the first performance, means it was made before Tem even died. Which means this proves Bill either killed Tem or had Tem killed so he could be Adler in the performance. But now the big question, why was it so necessary for Bill to be Adler? Well, I'll get into that in a minute, but there's also one thing that was unaccounted for in this situation. It wasn't Bill who chose to be Adler, it was Louis who selected Bill as Adler. So how could they guarantee that Louis would select Bill? For this plan to work, Louis had to pick Bill. This means other parties who ran within Louis' circle must have subliminally implanted the idea to Louis' mind that, should I not be able to do the performance, Bill is worthy of taking my place. And considering how Louis runs in the high class and middle class circle of people, this means whoever orchestrated the plan for Bill to be Adler must have deep connections enough to manipulate Louis into doing what they want, or to manipulate those who interact with Louis to do so, perhaps without them even knowing. And Bill does not have the power to do this. The only people who would be able to do that would be someone with power, connections, and money. And obviously the whole plan wasn't just to allow Bill to be the star of a 30-minute performance in one school in one place. No, that'd be ridiculous. Maybe it was to knock Louis down a peg, but once again, that is a lot of steps just to knock one person down. Clearly there's a larger plan at work. And somehow this plan clearly revolves around Bill being Adler. So, who could have done that? Who has the money? Who has the power? Who has the fortitude and drive to do it? And what was their larger plan? The only ones within the series that have that much power would be Ogma, the Shishigumi, another of the black market organizations, the mayor, Melon, or Yaya. But why would they do this? What is the bigger plan? What were they orchestrating? How long did they plan this? And what was the end goal? Well, I don't know, honestly. I couldn't figure out an answer. It's just a theory at this point, but there has to be a large thing, because within the confines of the Beastars world, the only way for Bill to have a costume in time for Adler's second performance means he must have had it made before Tem even died. That is the only logical answer within the Beastars world. within the confines of a narrative story that is written by an author, there's another answer, which is it was a small oversight given by Paru that doesn't actually affect the story. And while it is a continuity and plot hole issue, it doesn't actually affect the larger story as a whole. And very few people will ever even click onto this, and you need the knowledge of even knowing about this to even be able to talk about it. So the likelihood of them actually planning this means it was probably just an oversight that doesn't actually matter, and I'm looking way too deep into this. But it could also be the first bit. Normally I'd let this slide, but the first episode specifically sets up that they need to modify Tems' costume to fit Zoe. If they hadn't drawn attention to it, I could have let it slide, but in drawing attention to it, it needs to be mentioned. And just to be clear, no, I don't actually think there was a giant conspiracy. I just thought that was a really fun way to do this video because this is kind of a boring subject, like, if you look at this, it doesn't make sense, how am I going to put this into an entire video? But the actual conspiracy thing was a fun thing that just made me giggle so hard, and I loved writing this video so much. But don't worry, the video's not over yet. I think it was just an oversight that very few people would ever notice. Unfortunately, due to the series drawing attention to it in another episode, it became a canonical problem. So there is a philosophical discussion to be had with relating to Bill's ideology of living his life using the power he was born with, because he was born with it. Sure, he's not really a foot soldier in a deeper shadow war, but it does bring up an interesting discussion about power in the Beastars world. Should those born with inherent natural abilities be expected to restrain themselves in a world where others can train all their life and still not have a fraction of the raw ability of those born with said power? Alternatively, does one displaying such power when it's inherently present actually show power? If a tiger's inherent strength level is 100 and a deer's strength is 20, a tiger throwing a punch with a power force of 80 versus a deer throwing a punch with a power punch of 80 shows the same physical amount of power, but the tiger only threw 80% of their natural power, while the deer punches 400 times their natural power. Relatively, the tiger would need to throw a punch of at least a force of 400 to meet the same power as the deer. However, whether or not one would argue that the deer has more relative power, the tiger is inherently more powerful, whether or not displaying the base level of power they naturally possess. So, should those with inherently more power restrain themselves in a world where others are born with a fraction of their strength? Well, that's up for you to decide, because, you know, this subject is completely irrelevant and will never be brought back up in the series at all, ever. It's just a random tidbit I have in this one episode that will never be mentioned again, so yeah, let's have a little fun discussion in the comment section. Do you believe power should be monitored in the Beastars world? Some of you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't Google it. I'm leaving a little breadcrumb for those who know, but for those who don't know, looking this answer up will massively spoil the series for you. Please don't look it up. I've made this joke a few times in the last few episodes, but yeah, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, it is something to come in the series that is an awesome twist, but in looking it up, you will spoil a massive part of the story for yourself, so please do not do it. But for now, thank you all for watching. Let's do a subscribe check-in. As I'm making this video, we have this many subscribers on the channel, and if you want to help the channel grow, hit those buttons down below. See ya. Oh, and enjoy the bloopers. There's quite a few this time. I have stumbled onto a conspiracy case within the Beastars universe that no one else is talking about, and by the end of this video I can prove that Bill not only conspired with a black mark. Fuck that up. Try again. There is a conspiracy within the Beastars universe that no one else has talked about ever before, and I wish to prove. Fuck that up. I have my hair down like. Do I have a chalkboard? I don't have a chalkboard. No, corkboard, not chalkboard. That's like different. I have stumbled upon a conspiracy theory within the world of Beastars that no one else has ever covered on. Fuck that up. Fuck it. I've stumbled upon a conspiracy theory within the Beastars. By the fact that Bill has a costume for the second performance, this means. What does it mean? It means the only possible answer is Bill conspired. By the fact that Bill has a costume for the second performance, this means the only logical answer within the Beastars world is someone did something to do something to someone. Not only does this mean Bill is part of the conspiracy, but it also means that Zoe. Not only does this mean someone is something of someone or some. This is an entire blooper video on its own, I guess. The Adler poster states the performance takes place from 2 PM to That's going to be from 2 p.m. to 2. From 2 to 2:30. This is going to be fun to say. Whereas the dill on the pizza. Mamma mia.